with your experience as being the Dallas mayor and being a CEO of a company that did relocate, and with what we've seen in the last 4 or 5 years of, like, to your point, so many people coming to Dallas and coming to DFW. I mean, are you hit up like once or twice a week for consulting calls on, hey, should we relocate?
No, I've had some calls that have been more helping the Dallas side of the equation of getting people. Um, it's been amazing to see. I honestly believe if you just step back and look at the hard numbers, Dallas is really becoming the center of the U.S. economy. If you look at growth in population, growth in GDP, if you look at companies that are moving here, this is really where the focus is now. California actually lost a congressional seat. 20 years ago, you would have never even thought that was possible, but that's what's happening. New York loses a congressional seat. This is where kind of the center of the country is really coming. And for the first time, because of international flights, DFW is an enormous asset, that sort of thing. You've got the focus. We'll have in another year and change, we'll have the World Cup. I would have liked to have had the finals, but we'll have the semifinals. We'll have more games than any other location. Plus, we'll have the press corps here.
I don't know the exact numbers, but to your point, I think Dallas and the Texaplex, Dallas, Houston, Austin, has more Fortune 500 company headquartered here, maybe number 2 in the country.
No, more in Texas than any other state.
Than any other.
More in Dallas, Fort Worth than any other place in Texas.
And you referenced sort of leading the charge for relocation. I believe that was AT&T.
It was.
During your tenure. We had John Donovan, the former CEO of AT&T Communications, on the podcast last month. And so not only are you attracting companies, but the talent pool, just the intellectual capital that comes here.
And that's what goes with it. When in the AT&T, and I just recently I played golf with Randall Stevenson, who was the CEO at that time. And he has told the story publicly, so I can too. I called him. I had been mayor a relatively short period of time, almost measured in weeks, not months. And again, I wanted to see what I could do. Clearly business-oriented economic development, my background, not surprisingly, wanted to pursue that. So I called him. I said, I'd like to meet with you. And I'm sure his reaction was, the last thing I want to do is meet with a mayor. But, given operations here, he felt obligated. And it was just me and one other person, and he and his chief of staff. And I kind of laid out what the arguments were. And he was very polite, listening, not committing, nodding his head. It was a nice conversation, but there was really no reaction. And again, a lot of the things that I said were the things I mentioned to you that led me to the decision. Plus, then you add in, Dallas Fort Worth Airport, you add in Love Field, et cetera, those sorts of things. 2 weeks later, his chief of staff called, said, "Hey, I'd like to visit with you on what you talked about." Again, make long story short, with lots of phone calls and lots of efforts in between, 11 months later, they announced that they were going to move to Dallas.
So what was the economic impact of that?
Significant. So they said, and I'll give you a couple of examples. They said on the front end that this would be 800 people. I never believed it would be 800 people. That was, we put a relatively limited amount of money down on the table. So the city of Dallas did put about $5 million down on the table, which was probably more, when you think about it, a show of support than it was a number. Clearly, if you looked at the balance sheet of AT&T, you would be challenged to find where that number was. But I knew the 800, and that was the number they gave that kind of justified our contributions of bringing jobs to town, et cetera. But there's other folks that spent time on that. I never spent any time on it. See, there's some city council people that were, kind of, well, how do we do that? That was never an issue to me. Largely because I knew the 800 number was going to be a joke. And the reason it was a joke was, if the headquarters moves here, I can tell you some of the units that they were going to leave back where they weren't going to stay there. Those units would migrate to where the CEO and the senior leaders were. In addition to that, you would have vendors that would come in and that would be focused on it. So we've ended up with a multiple of those number. Then I'll give you a perspective on that 5 million. So about 16 months after they had moved, I did a little calculation myself. I went in and looked to what their donations into the community were, where they had made donations, educational, arts, et cetera, across there. $55 million is the number I got. I may not have got everything. 55 million. So if anybody wants to ask me about that $5 million investment, I would love to have them show me their portfolio and see if they got a return over six months that went from 5 to 55.
Is Dallas set up to manage this growth as our infrastructure?
As long as we don't screw it up, then we can screw it up.
Right.
As examples, the people in California, the people in the tri-states, they've screwed it up. And so a lot of our benefit has come from all of their mistakes. We need to do some smart things. We need to manage the infrastructure. To an extent, that's the roads, but it's also water and things like that. Dallas is actually pretty good shape of water. One of the things I learned, and you learn a lot of things when you become mayor, things you didn't expect, is water is a 40-year exercise. By the time you want a drop of water and the time you actually get it is a 40-year period. Dallas is in pretty good shape, but we've got to continue to do that. It's roads, those sorts of things, but it's also infrastructure things like the DFW airport and those sorts of things. We're making the investment. I think if you look at the investment we're making in terminals A and C, the new terminal F, this is going to be the largest hub any place in the world. It's already the second largest airport in the world. So we're doing those sorts of things, but we've got to make sure that we don't mess them up. The other way that we can mess it up is we can do stupid things in either Austin or down at City Hall that all of a sudden make it difficult for companies to move here. And it can be on the left side of the political spectrum, or it can be on the right side of the political spectrum. We've got to make sure that we do the sort of things that we've done to get business here, which basically says to businesses, we want you here, we'll give you a great environment, and then you go and do the right things. Once we start telling, either from the left or the right side, which California's done a good job, how they want to run their business and how they need to manage it, then we're going to mess it up. So as long as we don't do those things, I think that the run for the next 20 years, as good as we've seen the last 20 years, it's going to be even better.
The topic of screwing up. Well, I mean, yeah.
Talk about screwing up.
No. Because I think anecdotally, people are like, oh, California's screwing up, New York's screwing up. Can you give specific examples or specific policies that, in your opinion, this is why there's an exodus out of those locations to places like Dallas? And what are things that Dallas is doing right, specifically, that's attracting versus like what you just said, as long as we don't mess it up? Like, what are you referring to when you say specifically what we don't want to mess up?
I was in a conversation with the head of one of the largest companies in the nation. They did analysis of the cost of an employee, the same position, in Southern California versus Dallas. It was a 40% differential, 40% differential. And that wasn't just the salaries. It was all the regulatory. It was the amount of leaves that they've got to provide, all those things built in. It was 40%. And that's what's happened. If you look at California and you look at the tri-states, they have heaped so much regulation on companies, on the way they have to operate. It makes it very difficult. It just adds cost after cost after cost. And that's the problem. And it is not one single thing, but it's a whole host of layering things. The other thing that is a piece of it too, which I think drives the cost, is an attitudinal one. I had, when I was mayor, I had a call from the editor of the Pittsburgh newspaper. I don't even remember what it's called, Pittsburgh newspaper. Said the head of one of the largest companies in Pittsburgh told a story in a speech, and I want to verify it. I said, okay, I don't know what the story is, but tell me and I'll be happy to do it. He said he was given a speech, and he said that one day he walked in to a restaurant and he sat at a table next to the mayor of Pittsburgh. The mayor of Pittsburgh wouldn't even acknowledge him or say hi. He said that same day he got a call from you, and you gave him an argument of why he should move to Dallas and all of the great things that you could provide for him there. It's an attitudinal type of thing. As long as we understand what makes a great business environment and the benefits that come with that, jobs, opportunities, etc., we'll be fine.